Recording in progress.
So good morning, everyone, and welcome to this EEEGR session, which today will be focused on ECITB's Connected Competence Initiative. We're really pleased to be joined by some fantastic speakers this morning and all of you attendees as well. So we're looking forward to hearing some fantastic questions from you all. So please do post questions and get involved in the presentation. We want to make this as interactive as possible, please. So if we can put the slides up on the screen just to begin with, that would be really handy, and I can just run through some housekeeping points just to kick us off. Thank you. So as I said, we're running through a connected competence webinar. So this is focusing on standardizing and assuring base technical competence. And we've got some wonderful speakers joining us to run through this fantastic work that's been happening within the ECITB. So if we just flick to the next slide, please. So, excuse me, just a bit of housekeeping to begin with. So all participants are automatically muted by us, essentially. So please don't take it personally. That's just the automatic process. I think everybody's getting used to webinars and things. We've had plenty of practice. Let's say that. So keep your camera turned off, please, and there will be the opportunity for questions and answers at the end of the webinar, but please do put any questions that you have as we run through the webinar into the chat box at the bottom there. So as I said, really keen to make this interactive, so please do get involved, put your questions in there, and between the EEEGR team, we'll keep an eye on those questions and make sure that as many as possible are put to our panelists at the end of the session. Anything that we don't get to within the session itself, we'll make sure that are answered post-event, and we'll get those responses out to you as well. The webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on the EEEGR website, so if there's anything that you want to refer back to, then absolutely that recording will be there for you to take a look at a later date, and we'll get an email out just confirming as to how you access that a bit later on as well. Next slide, please. So just the agenda in front of you here. So the speakers will say hello and introduce themselves when they come onto their own sessions. But just to run through this just quickly before we kick off. So we'll have Keith Scott, Operations Director for Petrofac, covering a changing industry landscape. Then Lindsay Benson, Senior Project Manager at the ECITB, will cover as to how connected competence works. Karen Jenkins is Competence Assurance Lead at Wood PLC, and she'll be covering encouraging a mindset change. Agnes Burness, Competence Assurance Manager at Petrofac, will be covering aligning common competence. And finally, Emma Rodriguez will be covering, is the Training and Competence Manager for Worley, and will be covering value and benefit of a transferable workforce. And I think Lindsay will bring us to a close just at the end there as well. And then, as I said, we'll run into Q&A where we're looking forward to answering all of your questions. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Keith and we'll start the webinar. Thanks very much.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Keith Scott here from Petrofac. So I look after the digital side within Petrofac, and also have got my involvement as chair of the delivery group here on Connected Competence. So Connected Competence at high level is really, as it says, about standardising and assuring the base technical competence. And we'll, that my colleagues will go into that in a lot more technical detail in a minute. I'm just going to cover a little bit up front on the why are we doing it, what are our aims, what does success look like, how does that fit into the sort of the landscape of the industry at the moment. So this slide here shows the project sort of horizon that's coming up, and just to kind of give an indication across the energy mix, across the coming years of the projects and the work that's known about. Obviously, all of that work needs to be resourced, and it's also worthwhile pointing out that is only partly the work that's there. It's not a full picture. It's the picture that we know of at the moment, but it's not the full picture. So this is going to drive skill pressures. It's, you can see in there ranging from oil and gas, hydrogen, wind, carbon capture, storage, and nuclear. we've got a kind of broad range of energy mixes demanding a common set of skills that we need to deliver to the industry. It appears to be growing. We're seeing post-pandemic, we're seeing shutdown, turnaround, maintenance activity that was pushed back, coming back to the fore again. Decommissioning is underway for sure. New project activity, both around domestic energy security is anticipated, and we all know of the energy transition targets and projects that are out there. This doesn't capture all of that. It doesn't capture the new energy security strategy work that's being done and the impact of that. It doesn't take into account the North Sea Transition Authority latest licensing rounds. And there's a number of other extension projects and bits and pieces which we have an indication of but are not covered in that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that slide there is probably an underestimate of the demands, and kind of typically reflects the sort of project waterfall that we would see. So we're not seeing everything, but we know there's more to come just through momentum. Next slide. And this slide here then shows us a little bit about what that might mean. So ECITB have done some work to make some estimates on what that means for the skills required. Now, one thing to mention, I think mentioned already, was that there is a common sort of underlying skill set that we can deploy across these different energy sources, and that's where the bit about the same base technical skills comes. It's where we start to think about connected competence and how it might assist us. So again, I think I mentioned before, these are pretty cautious estimates. They don't reflect everything. They don't reflect energy security strategy, which could include up to about 90,000 jobs in wind alone. They only include 2 of the Track 1 industrial clusters. It kind of shows it as a continued demand within oil and gas. We could easily see nuclear, carbon capture storage, hydrogen being double those numbers. North Sea transition deal with decarbonising our assets, supporting carbon capture storage, hydrogen. Again, some of that stuff creating a significant demand for jobs. So the long and short of it is that 2026 peak is and fall off at 2030 is probably a significant underestimate. So we really need to be expecting strong demand. Okay, next slide. So this slide is our sort of front page of connected competence strategy. Starts to sort of explain where connected competence fits into that landscape. Connected competence is all about the standardization of base technical competence across the industry. It's industry-led. Everybody that's signed up to it has done so voluntarily, from organisationally, really with the objectives of, right, how do we embed competence assurance to maintain and improve our safety performance? How do we ensure that that we have this common competence practice of assurance that we can use across the industry, across all of our teams, and deploy reliably? And is there a way of reducing cost as well? So where we're currently duplicating training, duplicating assurance, running through mobilization processes, running through recertification of competence in 2 pays, and when people move work, can we eliminate some of that as well? And so our game here, our mission really, I suppose, is to start to secure a mandate from the industry, starting with oil and gas, but with a view that connected competence ultimately is recognised across all the EC industries, and it supports skills transfer, energy transition. So yes, my view personally is that from a UK PLC perspective, we need something like this. If you think back to that first slide and all the projects, we're going to need something like this to speed the transfer, lubricate the diffusion of people across the industry, take out costs while we do it, and do it safely and assuredly. That's the aim. Next slide. Okay, so this slide shows a little bit on our aims and what success looks like. So as I say, for us, success is it's consistent, it's mandated, it covers our base technical competence, and it becomes just something that we do. So in the same way that we have MIST and BOSIET happening, we expect that people will be, it will be normal for people to demonstrate their technical competence, and that will just be a standard. We'll create a level playing field because we don't really believe that competence should be a competitive weapon as such. It's competence is there to assure safety and the integrity of the assets, and sustained production and all these good things. That's kind of something that we recognised across the industry should just be a given. So we're working with our industry stakeholders, partners, and we're trying to align connected competence to other policy initiatives. So the people and skills sort of strategy with the Energy Skills Alliance, and the aim being there to allow us to, in time, allow transfer of personnel across the energy mix as things go. Then we come into the more sort of the more technical aspects of it. So we'd like to reduce duplication and waste. We want to get rid of unnecessary training, unnecessary competence assurance, support competence transfer as people move around. Essentially eliminate a whole lot of the inefficiencies and waste that are associated with having as many different competence methodologies as we have contractors in the market. We want to introduce digital technologies wherever we can. We want to drive further efficiencies through that route, and we want to be able to assure competence at our sites, right? So actually taking advantage of the fact that there was work done at site, it's real, and we actually perform testing and competence assurance there, which is in turn recognised and controlled and standardised. So that's the broad picture of what we're trying to do with connected competence. I'm going to pass across to Lindsay, who will give you a little bit more of the technical detail. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Keith. So yes, I'm Lindsay Benson. I'm a Senior Project Manager with ECITB, and I'm helping to support the Connected Competence employers adopt and deliver Connect Competence in industry. So I'm going to deliver a little bit of the technical element about what the model is and how it actually works before handing over to Karen Atwood to discuss an industry mindset change. So what is connected competence? So I think, like Keith has alluded to, it's essentially the standardisation of a recognised base level of technical competence across an industry-wide framework. The model recognises and is impartial to the many training routes available to first being deemed competent in a relevant trade, as it is a method of demonstrating currency of continuing technical competence for time served or experienced workers. And this is achieved through periodic technical testing or trade tests. The model itself is aligned against national occupational standards. These are developed by experts across industries and adopted across the 4 nations of the UK. It doesn't acknowledge site-specific or asset-specific competence or any sector-specific safety training, but it does focus on the generic base technical skills which are required and in demand across the engineering sectors. And it helps workers recognise that their transferable skills, or what their transferable skills are, and support the ambitions of skills transfer in the energy transition. It also gives assurance to employers that candidates are technically competent before investing in expensive site and safety related onboarding training for the role. And most importantly, it's industry-led, as Keith said, developed by industry, for industry, and supported by the ECITB. And this is demonstrated by the speakers, this collaboration is demonstrated by the speakers on today's presentation. Could I get the next slide, please? So how does the model work? It's a simple 4-step system, which is supported by an employer code of practice to support the implementation in your organisation. Firstly, employers would recognise minimum training or base qualifications. These may have been achieved many years ago, such as an apprenticeship or vocational qualifications. If the worker is not known to the employer, secondly, they may ask for a one-off knowledge test to first check knowledge competence. This can be done online. It consists of 35 multiple choice questions on activities across the trade. It's valid for 6 months and it's superseded then when the candidate undertakes the technical tests. So the technical tests consist of a short knowledge check, which is only 10 multiple choice questions relating to the specific task before undertaking the practical activity. This is then refreshed every 3 or 4 years, depending on your trade discipline, 3 years for construction and maintenance trades and 4 years for fabric maintenance trades. For transient workers or temporary workers, they are expected to assure base technical competence for the work scopes that they're being mobilised for. And for core crew, they would be expected to demonstrate currency of competence across all their trade activities. And this can be easily recognised through a trade award. So the example on the screen shown represents the electrical installation discipline. This has 5 technical tests in the suite. Some elements of the base activities are also a requirement of the Complex scheme. So you can see here that we've recognised where there is equivalent competence and will accept a valid Complex certificate to issue a trade award if the other tests in that suite have been completed. Next slide, please. So in order to ensure the base technical competence is transparent, accessible and transferable, there are a number of tools which both workers and employers can use. Firstly, standard industry role profiles set the base expectation for each role. This looks at a general overview of the role, the knowledge and skills and behaviours, as well as the technical competencies, which then directly relate to the technical tests. This doesn't supersede an employer's role profile. However, connected competence employers should meet this minimum standard within their own profiles. As mentioned, the performance outcomes of the tests are aligned against national occupational standards, and we have a mapping tool which employers can use to align and benchmark against this as well. The knowledge-only tests can be taken online, and the technical tests can be delivered at test centres across the UK. We're also aiming to launch site-based assessment this year so that competence assurance can be captured whilst delivering existing work scopes at site, and with the use of optional digital equipment too, which Keith had mentioned. Agnes will say more about this in later slides. And finally, the worker owns their own competence achievements through the issue of digital badges. This allows them to share their competence with fellow workers and allows employers or any stakeholders to easily validate their achievements through a few clicks of a button and without having to access cumbersome sector-specific databases as well. I'll ask Anna to click through the link on the screen, if that's okay. And this hopefully will demonstrate an example of this. I'm not sure that's, there we go. So this is an example of a digital badge, which also highlights exactly what competence criteria has been achieved. Anna, if I can ask you to click on the verify button, and this demonstrates how easily it is for employers or any stakeholders to verify that competence achievement. It's in date and it's valid as well. So if all employers were to recognise this base level of technical competence within their internal competence management criteria, then competence transfer could be easy and save significant cost and duplication. And all this information is available to anyone on the website to access as well. I'll now pass over to Karen Jenkins, Competence Assurance Lead at Wood, to talk about why the mindset change of assuring a recognised base standard of technical competence is necessary within the industry.
Thanks, Lindsay. Good morning, everybody. As Lindsay said, I'm Karen Jenkins, the Competence Assurance Lead at Wood. Just want to touch on, as the first bullet point on the slide says there, we mandate certain training within our industry sectors, but we don't mandate competence. A trained individual isn't necessarily a competent individual, because training, it's an environment in which people practice techniques to acquire the skills required to complete a task. And then the transition from training to competence is where those acquired skills and knowledge are transformed into capability, which then demonstrates competence. In terms of people's mindsets, we do have many people that view themselves and individuals as being competent, having completed either an apprenticeship, a vocational qualification, or having been in the role for many years, and as such, have that relevant experience. However, the key point to note here is that that doesn't demonstrate the maintenance and currency of competence, which is what we need to assure and manage across our industries. If you refer to the quote there in terms of what is competence, you'll see, the two key words that we've highlighted there is about recognising the standard to assess against and ensuring that that is assessed on a regular basis. If we don't manage competence adequately, it's been proven that it does contribute to disasters such as the BP Texas that we've quoted there, but also to fatalities, injury, and ill health. As connected competence organisations, we've taken various steps, to encourage the mindset change of individuals. We've established common goals supported by leadership and stakeholders, both internally and externally. And we've worked collaboratively to ensure that we're all working with common language to attain and implement a fit-for-purpose standardised model for competence assurance. Within the Connected Competence Organisation groups, we have a delivery group, which Keith mentioned earlier, and which all the presenters are members of. We have a Connected Competence Council, which is headed up by our leadership teams, and we've got other members such as trade unions and operators that sit within that group as well. And we're in the process of forming a Connected Competence Operator Council. We're fortunate that all our members are of the same mindset in relation to recognising the need and benefits of having that standardised approach. Communication is absolutely key when implementing something new and encouraging a mindset change. And as such, we've deliberately, implemented and pulled together a detailed communication plan, which ensures and continues to ensure that all our stakeholders are provided with the details that they need to understand why connected competence has been implemented and the benefits that it brings to the individual employer and the organisation, which again Keith and Lindsay have touched on. Examples of things that we have done specifically for the workforce, it has included mail shots to individuals who are currently employed and those that have exited, to give them the information around connected competence, why it's been implemented, etc. We are constantly posting social media posts, videos, etc., in order to get the information out there to everybody that would be in scope for connected competence. As connected competence organisations, we've reviewed and updated our internal policies and procedures to reflect and meet the criteria of the Code of Practice, which we've all signed up to. And we've done that, by ensuring that our internal stakeholders have been consulted with and communicated with before and at point of go live. And we've all had detailed implementation plans in place before doing that. Connected competence, it's not only assuring individual competence, but it assures team competence as well, which has been welcomed by the majority, as it instills a feeling of safety, a controlled work environment, which in turn reduces risk and complacency. I guess 2 points to consider in support of connected competence and assist in changing that mindset is it only takes one person to change your life. Within our industry sectors, individuals are required to complete safety critical and often complex tasks. I'd pose the question to you around, would you want to work alongside somebody who isn't competent, who could potentially be putting your life and their life at risk? In terms of action and adaptability, creating opportunity, that's what we're doing with the connected competence, in that, there will be hopefully that recognition across industry sectors. We're already doing it obviously within the oil and gas sector, and it's providing transferability of skills and negating the duplication of training and assessment, again, which Keith touched on. The connected competence organisations have now mandated the connected competence tests, effective 1st of April, which demonstrates our collaborative commitment in attaining ongoing competence assurance to ensure individuals and teams are suitably competent to carry out the tasks assigned and then work safely and effectively. We'll now show you a video from our members of leadership teams in which they talk specifically around connected competence and the benefits. Anna, if we can show that video, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Just one moment, we're getting that sorted for you.
Thank you.
I know that the ECITB's Connected Competence answers a challenge that we've had in the industry for some time. It ensures for our clients that we're providing them with the right level of trained and competent resources to undertake tasks at their sites. It also ensures for us as the employing companies that we know we're putting forward a trained and competent workforce to undertake the work, but for our employees, they understand that they're getting the right training to do the jobs that they need to do.
Maintaining industry competency throughout your career has never been easier. Connected Competence ensures we all work to the same standards that allow you to grow into the energy transition.
I believe competence assurance provides a warranty to us all about our people. It ensures you understand that our people have the right knowledge and the right experience to deliver the job right. It allows us to better understand the risk of performing work. This assurance of personnel capability in turn supports an effective, safe organisation, ensuring clear expectations of what is required.
Standardising core competence benefits us all as we move towards net zero. Within the energy sector, we work from a shared resource pool. Benchmarking the core competence within this pool allows for any personnel to move between companies whilst demonstrating their core competence.
By attaining a connected competence, you'll be able to demonstrate you're technically competent in your discipline, and your skills are easily transferable across different companies.
That's great, thank you, Anna. I'll now hand over to Agnes Burness, Competence Manager at Petrofac. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Morning all. I'm Agnes Burness. I'm the Competence Manager at Petrofac. So I'm going to share with you how we are applying this. So we're one of the organisations who already have a robust and effective competence management process within our organisation that we use across a variety of roles, and we'll have many different assets and different requirements. What this is allowing us to do, and we're currently working with ECITB and Harbour Energy on defining exactly how this will look and being able to pilot criteria that provides a clear set of standards for us all to work against, to make sure that if you have your own competence management process, that this is approved and we can use the mapping and use our own criteria to determine and assess and assure people at the connected competence-based standard. What this will do is this is going to give us the opportunity to use just the one process for assuring competence. We'll be able to save costs, but we'll be able to have that transferability that not only we have in our own organisation, but we're also now going to be able to have that across our industry and across other industries. This prevents any dip in compliance, any dip in competence, And we have the same, because it's going to be standardised and we're meeting a strict set of criteria. I know then that if we have anybody joining from another organisation that are using their own in-house competence process, that they have been subject to the same rigorous standards as ourselves, and that quality and that assurance is there. This provides us with the benefit of supplying competent people to all of our contracts. It also means that we don't need to send people to any additional technical centres, any training centres, and we can continue with the existing process that we have in place. As you can see here, it removes costs. It's going to remove duplication of assessment. We've had experience before where, as Keith had mentioned, 2-pay environments where we take people on and we have incumbents, and it's a huge amount of dip in competence. This is going to keep that level at all times with every organisation, understanding that regardless if somebody went to a test centre and achieved the digital badge or received it through an in-house competence process, that standard and that robustness is just the same. And we can have that same level across every organisation and across the industries. As I say, removing any duplication and be able to provide that, as Lindsay said, the digital badge, that provides an easy way of verifying. So when we have new employees coming on and they come with this accreditation, we can then verify very quickly and assure ourselves that this person has met those rigorous standards. That's all from me, but I welcome any questions at the end or at any time, and I'm going to hand over to Emma.
Thanks, Agnes. Good morning, everyone. I'm Emma Rodriguez, the Training Competence Manager at Worley, and I'm going to take you through the value and benefits of a standardised and transferable workforce and what this looks like in terms of clients, employers, and the employee themselves. So if we firstly look at the viewpoint of a client, they've got greater visibility of workforce competence with improved skills, transparency, and transferability of technically competent workforce accessible in periods of high demand and shutdowns. Improved quality assurance and reduced incidents, so getting it right first time. One clear base technical competence model for tendering activities. And reduced costs being passed on due to overspecification of skills and duplication of training and testing. Now looking at an employer's perspective, connected competence allows greater mobility of the transient workforce when additional resources are required. And since mandating connected competence for the transient or temporary workforce in April, we've just started to see the benefits with reduced mobilisation times. It identifies gaps in trade competence and promotes targeted development plans rather than a one-size-fits-all. Simplified process allowing greater alignment and skills transfer acceptance between service companies. So there's reduced time chasing certificates and duplication of courses and testing. Standardised competent workforce preventing unskilled labour entering the market. So we have confidence that we're mobilising technically competent personnel to an aligned industry standard. And finally, from an employee perspective, recognition and visibility of their own technical competence, highlighting generic transferable skills recognised across energy sectors. Again, as with employers, it identifies gaps in trade competence and promotes targeted development plans for employees, meaning individuals will get the training needed when scheduled to receive it. They have the confidence that their colleagues and team members are also technically competent, believing they can perform their work well with the right skills and experience, and it gives them the assurance that everyone is working safely. Finally, as Agnes discussed, competence can also be assured at site, removing a test centre environment and allowing individuals to be assessed in familiar settings. As you can see, I've covered many of the benefits and value of connected competence. This is just the beginning, and we're confident that this list will continue to grow. I'll pass back over to Lindsay now to bring us to a close.
Thanks, Emma. So all the information, I hope this has been an informative session for everyone on the webinar today. All the information is freely available on the website, as I've mentioned before. It's structured, very focused for workers, for employers, for stakeholders. So hopefully you'll be able to find the information quickly and easily. And again, if there's any questions, queries, I've put my contact details down there on the slide as well. So I'd welcome anyone that wants to get in touch and learn a little bit more. And if you're interested in adopting Connected Competence in your organisation and what that could look like, I'd be delighted to have a conversation with you. I think that takes us almost to the Q&A session. So I'll pass back to EEGR to facilitate that.
Lovely, thanks Lindsay, and thank you to all of our speakers this morning. That's it's been a hugely informative session. Really pleased to see the content and to see where we're at with it all, and to see how it's impacting some of those organisations that have been on the call this morning. So I think we'll open up for Q&A. So I've got a couple of questions in front of me here. For those that are on the call, if I can ask you to continue posting questions, anything that's come up during the slides, if you could just pop that into the Q&A section at the bottom or into the chat area, so that that we can put those questions to our panelists. So I'll ask one to the panel just to kick things off. And perhaps, I don't know if it's possible to just take the slides down just so that we can, just for now, so that we can see everybody, and so I can pick on people as well. That would be great. So if I can ask all the panelists just to pop their cameras back on, please. There we go. Thank you very much. Excellent. Okay, so so the first question then, so if this is a collaboration with the service companies and the contractors, are the clients also bought into this? So I don't know if we've got any volunteers. I'm going to watch for mics to unmute. If not, I'm going to pick on someone. Keith, you unmuted quicker than anybody else, so away you go.
I thought what I'd do is I'd get in early before you asked me a really difficult one.
Good idea.
Yes, the clients are very much on board. There's as well as the delivery group, which is the contractors who've all signed up. We also have a council session, and the council session is staffed by both the contractors and operators and a number of other sort of cross-industry parties. So that's been on the go since we started this. They've been on board. I think what's been happening is the operators have been keeping an interested watching brief. We've presented to the Operator Council a number of times through Oil and Gas UK, yeah, they've shown a lot of support. We're about to move to a phase where we now ask the operators to sign up to a mandate as well, and they're going to derive their own mandate. So in the same way that the contractors wrote and then signed up to Connected Competence, our contractor mandate, we're expecting that the operators will, in the next couple of months, also write and sign up to their own operator mandate, and we've got a number of operators have agreed to join that working group and help write that mandate. So yeah, it's moving in the right direction. I think the operators see as much benefit to them as we do from a contractor point of view. So yeah.
Excellent, thank you, Keith. And unless I see any other mics unmuting to add to that, I'll move on to the next question. So the next one that I've got in front of me here is if this has started in oil and gas and the ambition is to recognise skills transfer across other sectors, what are you doing to achieve this?
I can take that one,
Excellent.
Gemma.
Thanks, Lindsay.
So obviously ECITB are engaged across 8 different sectors covering engineering, construction, industry. So although this started, like you said, in oil and gas, and it focuses on generic skills transfer, these are just as important in other sectors. So it's about recognising from an employer's perspective what that skills transfer means to them. So there's 2 key pieces of activities, well 3 actually at the moment. So we are working with the APITO-led Energy Skills Alliance, which is part of the North Sea Transition Deal, and Connected Competence is recognised within their mutual recognition framework, and that will hopefully form the basis of a skills passport for the sector as part of that North Sea Transition Deal. But we're also engaged with nuclear in developing some case studies. So we're working with EDF, with Magnox and Sellafield. So to look at the suitably qualified and experienced personnel in nuclear and how that completely aligns over to the Connected Competence model. And we hope to issue case studies shortly on what that looks like for new build and decommissioning. And then into wind as well. So we're also looking at where the electrical, the mechanical and the instrumentation core competencies transfer over into wind technician roles for installation and for ops and maintenance, and also the balance of plant. So we're engaged in some workshops with various stakeholders within that industry, including Scottish Power Renewables, with Vattenfall and with a number of organisations to look to recognise exactly those skills transfers. And that will help organisations, not just oil and gas that are diversifying as well, but those that already adopt Connected Competence, and it helps to make sure that the personnel can transfer over across different business units, and where the business has strong desires for diversification, understand exactly the opportunities for their own personnel as well. Hopefully that answers the question.
Excellent. Yes, it does, Lindsay, and it actually answers part of another question which I had from my own perspective noted down, which certainly we've been involved in those conversations about the passporting of skills, and I think probably everybody on the call will agree that that's kind of been a discussion for a long time about how, even just within the energy sector, and I appreciate that ECITB represents much wider than just the energy side of things, but certainly within the energy sector, that has been one of those conversations that has gone on for a long time about the passporting of skills. And so my question was going to be around whether you are linked into that process, and I know that you'd mentioned about the Energy Skills Alliance earlier on, so I had sort of assumed that that you were, but thought it would be interesting just to raise that. I guess to add to that then, so why has this taken so long? If we've been talking about it, I mean, certainly I've been at EEGR 8 years. I can remember these conversations predating my time at EEGR, certainly when I was working within an organisation previously that was historically oil and gas and then moved into wind, and certainly those original conversations were about having a workforce that could move, if nothing else, between wind and oil and gas and back again, and we sort of, I think, relatively quickly realised that it perhaps wasn't as simple as we'd anticipated. So why has it taken so long for us to get to a point where we're talking about connected competence, we're talking about the passporting of skills, and things genuinely seem to be moving in that direction of recognising that competence across the field?
I'll answer very quickly before my colleagues come on, and it was interesting because when Keith and I first addressed the OE UK Operator Council, the feedback was, well, this just makes sense. Why haven't we done it 20 years ago? And it does. It sounds easy and it sounds simple, doesn't it? But essentially, we're asking contractors to change the way where they have traditionally competed against each other, and competence has been a factor within that previously, but now we're moving towards this base level of technical competence, which should not be used for commercial gain. We're not dictating how contractors or other organizations, this is not just contractors, this is clients and other organizations as well that can adopt this base standard. We're not dictating to them what that standard should be. We're just asking them to everybody align to that same common base standard to assure safety and help cost in the sector. So yeah, so it's where they've traditionally been competitive, and we're asking them to collaborate, and that's been a mindset shift certainly. So I'll pass that question on to some of the employers on the call as well. It's not been easy. It's not been easy.
No, I can imagine.
I think you're right, Lindsay. It is, you know, we see in the industry now quite a big culture shift with a lot of things. You know, the sort of old ways, traditional oil and gas ways of working are now eking out, and we've got a far more forward thinking, collaborative approach across the industry rather than just siloed within an organisation. Because, you know, I think it was in Karen's presentation, you know, it's about team competence, and team competence isn't just about in your own team or on your own asset. Team competence is actually as an industry or as a wider group of industries. It's about, you know, what we talk about in my team, my competence team here is we want to improve it for everybody anywhere. It doesn't matter where you work. That everybody's got the same objective and outcome. We want people to be safe. We want them to go to their job safe and come home safe. And it doesn't matter who you work for. And if we can find ways that we can do that in a cost-saving way that, you know, removes a massive amount of administration burden as people move about in different contracts. And now with, you know, such an opportunity for workers to go across different industries and actually prevent that reaffirming what is a base competence standard every time they go somewhere, it actually makes a move to something, you know, that would be completely different for them in terms of industry a bit more appealing, because I'm not going to have to redo anything that, you know, nobody's going to show me how to suck eggs when I already have demonstrated that for 15 years. I'm going to be able to take that with me, and now actually I want to know what it's like to work in wind or whatever else, because, you know, we all know, you know, a change is as good as a rest, really, isn't it? You know, and it reinvigorates people. So I would say there's a huge mindset and culture change that's happened across the industry, not just in this, but it's really helping to push this forward.
Excellent, thank you. So I mean, that kind of nicely leads me into to my next question, actually, Agnes. So thank you for that. So I guess, you know, we've talked about how we've linked into the clients, and we've talked about the operator side and to the company and the contractor side. But what about the, you know, the employee in this, you know, in amongst all of this? So, you know, obviously you mentioned there about they can transfer between different elements of the sector, and they can see all of that side of things. But how is the message of connected competence really put forward to the employees? Are they aware that, you know, we're having these conversations, and that this is, whether it's around passporting of skills or whether it is around connected competence specifically, do you think they're being brought along as a part of that conversation? Are they aware that that's going on and that how important it is?
I'll just, before Emma and Karen have probably got examples as well, but a particular example for me at the moment is one of our contracts is an aging asset. So, you know, we've sort of redefined our competence process and framework within Petrofac over the past few years, and we've very much aligned that to connected competence so that we can start to utilise all of these good things that we've spoken about. Now, this one particular contract, we're in the transition phase of moving them from their old paper and into this, you know, much better way of doing it. And we have been getting, you know, where the workers are like, oh, I forgot to do this as an agent asset, you know, you're just asking me to do this, and what good is it going to do to me? And actually in all our rollout sessions, this is what we're sharing. We're saying, not only will this be really good for you, this is an agent asset, but as part of being a Petrofac employee, once you've demonstrated this competence and you have this, you will be easily transferable. And that will obviously be looked at positively by another contract, because why would we want to take somebody who's not demonstrated competence and have a dip in compliance? But actually we're also sharing, but you've got opportunities perhaps in other energies, because, you know, this recognition or you know, in connected competence will hopefully be recognised or be used. But even if it's not, the fact that that's there and people understand what that is, that's a level of assurance that people can then have. And the feedback we've had from that has been really positive. And actually the turnaround is that the guys are practically biting their hands off now for support, because they've actually understood there is a huge value and benefit to this, rather than the negative, oh, it's an agent asset, and what good is this going to do me? they can actually now see the value in what this could bring them.
Excellent, thank you. Emma, Emma and Karen, I can see you both unmuted, so I'll let you decide between you as to who's going to go first.
I'll
go first.
Okay, can you go?
So yeah, I just wanted to mention it was difficult, as I think Lindsay had mentioned at the beginning, just trying to engage with employees. There was multiple sessions that we had with employees to get them on board, and we took on their feedback. So we have framed the question banks and taken feedback on board to make sure that we are providing tests that are relevant for their role. It's really been useful, and we're starting to see the reduced mobilisation time since we did mandate the tests for transient workers in April. And we've started to see people come with tests from other companies that we're able to put through our onboarding process really quickly. Like was mentioned, there's less duplication of training, less duplication of testing, and I think the employees are starting to see the benefit. It did take time, but they are starting to see the benefit now and how they can move quickly with this across service companies with just the one piece of competence that they've got across the suite.
Excellent, thanks, Emma. And Karen, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think it was just to touch on, I think, and I mentioned it in my slide as well, I think communication has been the key factor in bringing the individuals along this journey with us and getting their buy-in, changing their mindset. Hence why, we've had very detailed communication plans, and we continue to work through those plans to maintain that communications with the individuals, and included in that was the provision of opportunities for individuals to get funded tests, so there was no cost to them until such times it was mandated, and so I think getting their buy-in by providing funded places for them certainly helped with that. But yeah, we've all got our we've got our common communications plan, but then we've got our internal communication plans as well. So it's been absolutely key to getting the individuals on board, and continues to be.
Excellent, thank you, Karen. So I think I'm just looking at the time. We've maybe just got time for just one more quick question. So I'm just looking at the chat and the Q&A down the bottom, so I don't think I've missed anything down there. So Lindsay, I don't know.
While you're doing that, Gemma, yeah, I was just a way to mention a point that I wouldn't underestimate the collaborative efforts of the Connected Competence employers, which is really something that it should be commended. So the knowledge sharing and the help that the organisations provide each other as well, in terms of what works well for one organisation and sharing that across another. And that's something that we hope to continue as the Connected Competence model grows and develops. That we've got all the good what went well and what didn't work well, and we've got those knowledge sharing and those lessons learned moving forward. So. But great collaborative effort from all those competing contracting organisations.
Excellent. Well, I think that's probably a really positive note to close the webinar on. So rather than me pulling another question forward, I think we'll bring it to a bit of a close there. So thank you to all of our panelists for joining us this morning, and obviously thank you to our attendees as well for listening in. And I hope you found it a really informative session. Lindsay shared her contact details on the slides just earlier on, but if you have got any questions or any information that you're still looking for in relation to Connected Competence, then please do let us know. If you missed Lindsay's contact details, they'll be on the slides, which will be sent out after the webinar as well. And obviously from an EEEGR perspective, if there's anything we can do to assist, then please do get in touch. I think that's about it from us. So it just leaves me to say a final thank you, and we'll look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you very much.